today's session will be about what is the important tool for evaluating or evaluation, yes, or for an assessment. The main tool is the question paper. So today we will be discussing about question paper setting and how to set the blueprint for the question paper, and of course the requisites for grading the internal assessments. So let us go to the first slide, next slide. First, we would see what is a question paper. So we all, as teachers, we all know question paper is a document that contains questions to be put at an examination for being answered by the student. So this is the question paper. So what are the characteristics of a question paper? So what are the qualities a good question paper must have? It must encourage recalling. So all the concepts that we have taught in the class must be able to be recalled by the student when they read the questions in the question paper. We should not use words that are totally new to the student while referring to the same concept. So whenever they read the words in the question paper, whenever they try to reach to the concept to solve the question in the question paper, it must be easily worded so that the concept that is taught in the class they must be able to reconnect with the concept, and it should deepen the learning process, promote imagination and problem solving. So it must actually guide them to how the problem can be solved. The way the questions are aligned, the way the data is given must actually kind of lead them or guide them to the method which they use for problem solving. So some questions we could see will be all confusing. The data is not arranged properly. Of course, they can do it with the given data, but the arrangement of the data will not be such that the child is able to solve the problem. So all that must be avoided. The questions must not be vague, must be arranged in a neat fashion. Satisfy the sense of curiosity in the child, and it must increase creativity. It must give ample scope for the child to think different methods in which the problem can be solved. The child must be able to choose the shortest method or the method that uses less time or give accurate result. So these are the qualities the question paper must have. I am sure these are only the very broad points. I think teachers can come up with more points. Yes, teachers. Is there any point that you would like to add, teachers, on how a question paper must be?
Yes, ma'am. The question paper should be balanced, ma'am. Whether topper children also need to score it, and the slow learner also should score some marks. So
Yes,
it should be balanced. The three type of children should be balanced with the question paper, ma'am.
Yes,
Shamagapriya,
ma'am. Very good. So in a class, we have a heterogeneous mix of children, the high achievers, the slow learners, and in the middle, like the bell curve, we have the average students. So the question paper must be set such that the bell curve of the entire students are able to answer the questions. There is no point in setting a question paper in which only 5% or 10% of the class is able to do it well and pass the exam. Very well said, Shanmugapriya ma'am, especially for mathematics, because we all know the stress levels of children before a math exam, before the night of the math exam. The stress levels of the children are very, very high, because math is the only subject where we don't ask the same questions or the direct questions from the textbook. We can always ask from outside. So
the thing is that they cannot memorize anything and just come and vomit here. That's many a times if they are very good at only memorizing, no, they just mug up all the answers. Just they will go through only the question and answers for that matter in some other subjects, say English, science, social and all. They'll just, or languages for that matter also, they just memorize that and come. And whatever they are able to, only that part they will be able to answer. Apart from that, if something else is questioned from inside the textbook or in between the lines of the what they have already read, they will not be able to answer. So they will not be able to read in between the lines. So this is one drawback. I won't say it's a drawback. Actually, it's a little tough on the student side to manage maths because they cannot expect anything for that matter that was done in the class. The same number will not be repeated. They cannot memorize. For that matter, they should know how to solve the LCM sum. What are the steps that involve the LCM? Whether it can be a listing method or a common division method or say for prime factorization method in the HCF, they should know how to do that. They cannot just simply mug up, oh, the factors of 12 are this, the factors of 24 are this, and just come and write there. If it is not at all relevant to what it is asked, they cannot do so. So here, mugging up or memorizing is totally ruled out. Totally ruled out. So they need to understand the concept, apply that concept in the question paper, understand the sum. First step is to comprehend the question correctly and then apply the concept. When applying the concept, they have to analyze whether it is right or wrong. Then start the process, continue with the process confidently, then arrive at the solution. So one thing, as ma'am was suggesting yesterday, between assessment and evaluation, assessments, of course, we can rectify the errors then and there because that is all internal. And if it is a short test, for that matter, periodic tests, whatever mistakes it can be rectified. The teacher herself corrects the mistake in the question paper also, and she writes the comments where it has to be corrected and what are the major errors that she has done in the answer paper. All that can be rectified, whereas evaluation is the end. Suppose if you take the board exam, the final exam is the end of it. There you cannot rectify your mistakes. That's all. So like that, early exam is one such exam, one such evaluation for the formative years. So there, they cannot rectify that mistakes. Whatever rectification was taught to them, whatever rectification was suggested to them, if they have applied it in the right way, then the evaluation becomes a cakewalk for the children. So they have to keep it in mind that evaluation, when we say about evaluation, the last final exam is very, very important, where they cannot take back their answers, they cannot correct their answers, and later they cannot repent, okay, I could have done this way, or I could have done that way, I could have done, if I would have done this way, I could have got a pass mark. All those things, they can just only ponder over, but they cannot rectify that at all. So it is very important that the evaluation papers are taken in a serious way. Many a times we see children, many children do like this. The first 6 months, they will not concentrate at all. Because the teacher goes on, insists in the class, if you pass only in the yearly exam, you will be promoted to the next class. The last 3 months only they'll start working on the subject itself. Only then some of the parents are also very sincere in making their children sit next to them and teach. So whatever was taught throughout the year, they will try to complete it in the 3 months. Just put into their heads. And that is where the child finds it very difficult to understand so many concepts. Not only in maths, they dump like this all the subjects. So finally, sometimes the children are stressed out. And they will not be able to grasp all those things within a short span of time. So these assessments which were conducted in the class plays an important role for them to perform better in the evaluation papers. So they have to take those assessments also seriously. Just a 20-mark paper, just a 25-mark paper. Oh, ma'am is just keeping one mental ability test. So what if I get a 0? Or so what if I don't study and go? Next mental ability test, I'll do well. So all these things which are taken very lightly will have its effect in the evaluation. If they would have sit and studied a very limited portion thoroughly or seriously, they would have performed well in the assessment. And for the next assessment, it will be another topic where it is again a revision for them. So they need not sit and do all the revision, all the concepts in the last minute. Already these concepts are thorough. So they can concentrate on the ones which they find it difficult at home. So it is very important to make the children understand that all the assessments are very important because they lead to the evaluation. Yes, ma'am.
So points to be noted. We will see a few points that are to be noted while we set the question paper. So first thing is, who is going to take the examination? That is the prime first point here. So what is the audience that are going to take the question paper? So if it is first standard, then the amount of thoughts to be included, everything will be very level, because
Minimal.
this is the first time, or that would be the first time they would take an evaluatory test, or they are all very small children. So we are give the paper consists mostly of direct questions, or the questions that are very minimally worded with very simple words, direct questions. So these are the kinds of questions you have to add when you are going to prepare for a class 1 question paper. For a class 5 question paper, the difficulty level can be a little bit more. You can put in questions with more creativity. You can increase that. And class 1 paper, as we would all know, we would include a lot of pictures. Try to include questions pictorially represented so that the children love doing questions with pictures. So that is the difference you will see when you see a class 1 paper and a class 5 paper. Of course, in a class 5 paper, the concept 4 and 5 paper, the concentration would be more on concept based questions more than the pictorial questions. So the students who are going to take the exam or face the question paper are to be considered when we are setting the question paper. We can't make a question paper for class 1 fully with numbers, isn't it? So that's going to make a big difference when we are going to consider what is the type of question paper we are going to set. Secondly, what outcome do we need from this paper? Are we going to test knowledge? Are we going to test memorization ability? Are we going to test the logical reasoning skills? So these are the various characters you have to consider when you set the question paper. So what is that you're going to test? Supposing you're testing a question in geometry, then you are going to test the geometrical skills of the child. If you are going to test the 4 operations of a child, you are going to set a question paper for an assessment which is going to test all 4 operations. Then you will have a question paper that fully tests the logical reasoning skills of the child. If you are going to have an assessment test that you are going to test only the formulae part of the child, then we are going to test a question paper that will basically
Multiplication. Yes, ma'am.
tables,
Multiplication problems, yes.
tables, or testing only the formulas. Then you will set a question paper that will only mostly test the knowledge that they have obtained. So what is the outcome we need to test from this question paper? That must be clear for the teacher before she tests the question paper, because the question paper must be an instrument through which that ability of the child is tested. So that is more important.
And one more thing, teachers. Ma'am, just go to the previous slide.
Yes,
So whenever we say who is going to take up the exam, here I would like to elaborate on this point also. Many a times, as we teachers, when we set a question paper, we try to prove our efficiency. This, of course, happens in many cases. When we say standard paper, see, there is a difference. There is a lot of difference between standard paper and a difficult paper. We misinterpret difficult paper as standard paper. Definitely it is not so. Actually, it is a thin line that differentiates a standard paper and a difficult paper. Standard paper is the one which consists of questions that was taught based on the concepts taught by the teacher, but worded in a different way, and they will apply their thinking ability to answer the questions. Whereas when we say difficult paper, it is definitely a different shade of it, where the concepts which are not taught to the children are also tested there. Definitely difficult papers are not encouraged or appreciated by the heads of the institution, and children would also lose their interest and their motivation level will definitely come down. So please don't set a difficult paper, rather it could be a standard paper. So please note the difference between a standard paper and a difficult paper. That is very, very important. And next thing is, when you set a question paper, many of us try to forget one simple tip. The very first question what the child answers should be a simple question. The very first question itself should not be so complicated that they will lose interest to answer the remaining part of the questions. That's all. If they don't know the first question, their mind becomes blank. As per the child's psychology, the first question should be worded in a very simple way, and it should be a simple question. So please try to keep all these things in mind and don't try to prove your efficiency in the paper. Many a times this happens. Teachers, they try to prove their efficiency in the paper, making it so difficult, and it is definitely not standard, and they deviate from the concepts. That is what we always tell you. And especially for class 1 and class 2, please teachers remember all these tips. 2 concepts should not be tested in the same question. That should never happen. 2 concepts, say for example, when it comes to numbers, arithmetic operations, they learn both addition and subtraction in class 1 and class 2. In class 1, it is addition and subtraction, whereas it comes to class 2, it is addition, subtraction, and multiplication. I would say that introduction to multiplication, of course, 3 digit by 1 digit also they learn. But don't ever combine 2 concepts in the same question. Please don't do that. That is very difficult for the child to answer. All these things you can do it in the class. You can make the class interesting by giving them, today I'm going to give you some challenging questions. Let us see who is going to answer. All that discussion can happen in the class. No doubt about it. The children also will enjoy. And some of them may not enjoy because they may not be able to understand the question, and they may not be able to think beyond that also. That is there. But all these fun, all these challenges can happen in the classroom, but not in the question paper. Please remember, 2 concepts cannot be tested in the same question. For that matter, it not only in arithmetic operations, even for that matter, when it comes to fractions and time chapter, all these things, don't club together and make it as a simple 1 mark question. That is definitely not advised. And one more thing, the number of questions that you do, that is also very important. You have to limit yourself. Too many subdivisions should not be given in the question paper. For example, when you take 2 mark questions, you give the mark as 2 into 5, 10. So, sorry, 5 into 2, 10. So 2 mark questions, you're going to give 5 questions. Okay. So that is your point, 5 into 2, 10, right? So it should be 5 questions, right? So in each 5 questions, don't start giving subdivisions, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. So it means you're going to give 10 questions there instead of 5 questions. Actually, your point is to give only 5 questions. If you start splitting into subdivisions like A, B, A, B, A, B, then the number of questions increase, which is definitely not liked by the children, and it is also not appreciated, because
Good morning, ma'am. From first school.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Network issues, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
It's okay.
Has been trying past 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, it's okay. So finally, at the end of the question paper, if you calculate the number of questions, suppose if you take, if it is an 80-mark paper, teachers, please I'm giving you the tip so that you will all be able to set up a standard question paper and a question paper with the right number of questions. 1 or 2 questions more or less, we don't mind. But if it is more than 10 questions extra or less, it is definitely not appreciated. Why is that? Is if it is too less, the children will finish the paper very easily and before the stipulated time. If it is a 2 hours paper, the child cannot finish the paper in 1 hour, which means it is two-way easy. And suppose if it is a 2-hour paper and if the child is not able to finish the 2-hour paper, not only one child, majority of the are not able to finish the paper, that means the paper is lengthy. The number of questions that was given or the difficulty level of the question must be considered and it has to be revamped. And one more thing, please keep it in mind. So when you take an 80-mark paper, if just as I said, if it is 5 twos and suppose if it is 10 threes or 4 fives or 5 fours. So the number of questions what you are restricting is here 5, 10, 15 and 15 plus 5, 20. It should limit to 20 questions only. Rather, in 2-mark also I give lot of subdivisions. So in 3-mark question, I'm not able to find a proper question which will suit 3-mark. So I'm going to give 3 subdivisions. Okay, 1 question or 2 question can have subdivisions which are easy for them to answer, or that subdivisions also doesn't consume lot of time to answer. That is okay, 1 or 2 questions. But everywhere subdivisions, in 3 marks if it's ABC, and in 4-mark if you go, it should be a 4-mark question, means it should have the split up correctly. For 4-mark, the question should be apt for a 4-mark question. It should not be a question for 2-mark or it cannot be a question for 6-mark. So please keep all these things in mind. So setting a paper is not that easy. We might think we are all experienced math teachers, knowing how to set a question paper. Of course, all of us know to set a question paper and you might also set a very good question paper, no doubt about it. But these are small things which makes the question paper a standard one. And when you look at the question paper, it should be error-free. And please see to that the font size of the question paper matters a lot. When it comes to lower classes, the font should be little bigger. When it comes to 3, 4, and 5, it can be a little smaller one. And the options that you give when it is choose the correct answer, we say that options as distractions in class 6, 7, 8. We call it as distractions. But of course, that word is not introduced in lower classes. We see it as options. The options that you give should be almost relevant to that particular question. Not simply rolling out the 3 options easily and marking the easiest one. That shouldn't happen at all. We should not give room for such simple questions. So please remember all these things. And when the options are given, please see to that for a single question, 2 options should never be right. Don't give such ambiguous question. It's also very, very important. What if I take it in another way? Okay, there was a question which we came across last time. The side of an equilateral triangle was 3 meters. What will be the perimeter of I think it was 2 triangles. Okay. Can you come out with the answers, teachers? Let me see. The side of an equilateral triangle was 3 meters. What would be the perimeter of, if 2 equilateral triangles are joined, what would be its perimeter? Equilateral triangles are what would be its?
Each side, ma'am, 3 meters.
Ma'am?
Yes, 3 meters, Jaya, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Equilateral triangle. Each side is 3 meters. Please suggest here, teachers. Please tell me.
Is
I-
it joined to
I will
corners
tell you
or
why I took this question. Yes, Sunita has said it is 18 and Jeevarani has said 12. Okay. Any other answers? Any other answers, teachers? Can you tell me why did I come across two such answers? One was 8, other was 12. Why was it that even as adults we came out with two answers?
because we were not sure how they were joined.
Very good, ma'am. Very good, Divya ma'am. Because the question was really an ambiguous question where it was not mentioned whether the triangles were joined by its corners or by its sides. That is very important, right? So, and one more thing, if it is joined by its corners, you will get a different answer. When it is joined by its sides, you get a different answer. So, here in the options, the options were having both 12, 18, and in fact 24 and 36. And see, ma'am is telling 9 centimeter. Ma'am, how could it be 9? Can you just tell me one? Can you justify how it could be 9? She's coming up with another.
Ma'am, each side is 3 centimeter, ma'am. So AB plus BC plus CA. So 3 plus 3 plus 3.
I said two triangles are joined, right, ma'am?
So equality triangle.
Equilateral triangle, of course, it is
Equal,
3.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Of course, the perimeter is 3A, right? It is 9
Yes.
centimeter. But I said two triangles are joined. So what will be its perimeter? I asked.
So 9 plus 9, 18 centimeter.
That's what they also said. So it is very simple to calculate that 9 plus 9 is 18. But
Okay, ma'am. 18. So
if you worded in a different way, if two triangles are joined by its sides or adjacent to each other, or at the adjacent sides are joined, or supposing if I wanted to be joined by the corners.
sorry, ma'am. I calculated one triangle.
That, yes, ma'am?
I calculated one for one triangle. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So the question was worded wrongly. So the question was actually not complete. Yes, teachers. So in that matter, both 18 is also right, 12 is also right. Yes. So we have to give back for both the answers. So we are in a position to give both the answers. Sometimes the child, without realizing that it is joined by its corners or without realizing it is joined by its sides, by fluke they would have ticked. So we are in a position to give mark for both, right? And we cannot justify only this is right. Though I have not mentioned how can you join by corners. Yes, of course you can do that. Yes, yes, in geometry, that is why there is a room for all these questions. So we are
Ma'am, in class,
answer and justify the answer.
yes, ma'am, in class 2, we had a question last time. The shape, the pencil box is an example for the solid shape dash.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the answer was expected to be cuboid, but children also ticked the cylinder because they had pouches.
Yes.
So we
And we
couldn't.
have cylindrical shape boxes also used as pencil boxes. I see children carrying one cylinder
Pouches.
box.
Yes.
Inside that they open it and put all those things and they carry
Yes.
it. So these are all ambiguous questions. A pencil box can be of any shape for that matter.
Yes, ma'am. And even this cuboid shape, they are not sharp from the edges. So they asked that question as well. How come is it a cuboid?
That's what.
Yes.
So these type of questions should definitely be avoided. And many a times we say, this question also, as ma'am was talking about geometry, in geometry only all these confusions happen because we are not concrete and we don't, that's what, when we show the objects to the children, we should be able to justify only this is sphere. This only is whatever is not satisfying the properties of the cylinder is definitely not a cylinder. So when this ma'am was suggesting me, I have seen this type of question also. When it comes to a common paper, we come across all such different questions. Gift box. And my question was, why should a gift box be cube or cuboidal shape? It can be a spherical shape. It can be a cylindrical shape, or I wanted to pack it in a very different way. It can be a pentagonal shape. Why should the gift box be like that only? Because it's easy for the teachers to show it in the class. Okay, this is a gift box. Look at the gift box. It looks like a ordinary gift box, which looks like a cuboidal shape or cubical shape. Why should it be? I can transform that gift box in any way, even an irregular shape for that matter, if I want, right? So don't give such ambiguous questions. And when you are setting the question paper, especially for geometry, of course, this doesn't happen much when we are dealing with numbers. That also happens sometimes. But when it comes to geometrical part of it and handling data part of it, please be very sure that you're giving the example of a concrete object which is exactly in that particular shape, especially these plane shapes and what is that, solid shapes. When we deal about that, it is very difficult. And many a times when we give examples for plane shapes, actually we ourselves are not sure.
One more question also, ma'am,
Please
for
say about
class
the-
1. One more question for class 1. A stamp has a plain shape of dash. So it was expected to be a rectangle, but we can also find square stamps
Square
as
shape
well.
stamps. Yes, of
Yes.
course, circular
That also.
shape stamps are
Yes.
also there.
Yes.
Yes.
So some children
So,
had
instead of giving the options like that, yes, what different shapes, in what different shapes can, what different plane shapes can you find the stamps? The question can be like that. Yes, or name the shape that you would find a stamp to be. Let them write a circular stamp, rectangular stamp, or a square stamp. Then at least they'll be, definitely it should not be cylindrical or spherical or cuboidal or cubical. That is of course definitely wrong. At least they must understand that we are referring to a plane shape. This mistake usually happens when they come to class 2 because they get confused with the plane shape and the solid shape. This is very important. So when you are giving options, instead of giving these questions in options, make questions as fill up and ask the children to think and answer. A stamp can be referred to any shape for that matter. Nowadays we get so many different kinds of stamps, so that it is released. Newly also you can introduce so many stamps. So please make sure that these questions are clear and simple and also not ambiguous. Very, very true. Ambiguous questions are not encouraged by anybody, and later you are in a position to answer the parents, clarify the doubts with the children, and for some you would have ticked and for some you would have put wrong. They might ask you the same question, ma'am, why was it right for her and why was it wrong for me? Why can't it be like this? So you have to keep justifying each and every person, which is time consuming.
And that stamp question also, one child came up and said why she had written circular and why we had marked it wrong. Then we said whether it's a rectangular or square. She said, no, I have a circular rubber stamp in my house.
See,
So
so
that is a rubber stamp, and so why is that answer wrong? So we had to just give her. So children
actually,
are very particular.
in fact, we had circular stamps earlier.
Ah, yes, ma'am. That's why the
Gandhi's,
child came up and said,
picture.
so why you have marked me wrong? Because my dad has a circular stamp at home. So then after much thinking, we had to even grade that. So what I would tell is children are very smart and things have grown, that our thinking is very narrow, whereas, there are broader things, and children will definitely come up and ask such questions as to why we have not graded them properly. So we have to be careful.
And I think you will know that when you come across this time chapter also, there will be a sequence of actions done by a child, and you will be asked to write whether it is in the morning or either it is a parts of the day. In class 1, you can identify as parts of the day, whether it is morning or afternoon or evening or night. Or when it comes to class 3, the time will be specified. You have to mention whether it is AM or PM, like that. There again, there was a question. I think it was a post of a child doing yoga. The teacher expected it to be done in the
morning.
Yes, why should it be done in the morning? It can be done in the evening. So these are the questions where we also have to think across, and we have to be liberal, and you have to award marks for such questions also. That is very important. And of course, sometimes we see a picture of a child playing. It can,
Resting place also,
yes.
ma'am.
Playing. So the teacher expects the playing means only in the evening. Gone are all those days. Playing happens only in the evening. Now they get up early in the morning. They go for this coaching, that coaching. Then they refresh themselves and then they come to school. So playing can also happen in the morning. They are playing a sport. That is also a playing. That's also a game. So why can't that happen in the morning? Why should it happen only in the evening? Not at all necessary. And one child raised a question in the school. We play in the afternoon, ma'am. Right? We have PT period. We play in the afternoon. That's a very good answer. So we need to think about all these things. And when we frame the questions, it has to be very, very clear. Avoid all these ambiguous questions. Later, it will become a big argument between the teachers when we discuss the scoring key. That usually we don't like, or we don't want to happen. So instead of arguing at the last minute, okay, no, I said the question paper, keeping this in mind, and that should be the right answer. For all the others, you have to mark wrong. And there will be a big argument from the other side saying that, no, why can't it be like this? Then the other school might argue for something else also. So please avoid all these things. Let us make the paper very, very clear.
Ma'am, to avoid this ambiguous, there was a picture in which a children was brushing his teeth, and there they have drawn a moon with star. So it was for night, and for daytime they have drawn sun. So just by looking at that picture, they were able to find out whether it's day or night.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, but one more thing also, if you look at it when it is day or night, that could be right, because we are not able to see the moon in the morning. That's true. But things are changing, right? When you go to the northeast, there they are able to see both at the same time. And this was a recent study I came to know. So if the child would have come from northeast, that could also be one of the reasons, because I also came to know. I was just going through that. How could this happen? Because many a times we don't expect that answer, but there the day part of it is very more than the night part of it. So at the same time, they can see both. Yes, ma'am. We'll go to the next.
So then we are should be clear on what are the different types of questions we want to set in the question paper. So we have to, the same concept can be tested using a variety of questions. So it could be fill in the blanks, match the correct answers, objective type questions like choose the best answers, true or false, and then short answers and long answers. And of course, we have a lot of guidelines while we set all these questions as well. So fill in the blanks. The most important thing is never start the fill in the blanks with a blank. For example, dash is an example of a cube. So never start like that, because the child will not be able to understand or comprehend when we start a fill in the blank with an empty blank. For example, you can reword it like the example of a cube is a dash. So you can always bring the blank in the end. As far as possible, we can avoid.
And in the middle also, no issues, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. In the
Not
end
in the
or in the middle, yes. So avoid keeping the blank in the beginning as far as possible, and match the correct answers. Of course, sometimes we see the answers such that people who don't know mathematics also can do the match following. For example, in a 24-hour clock, it is say 24, and then it is given the time this side, and then kilometers and centimeters, liters and milliliters. So if it is given like this, people who need not understand the answer also can match the time and time, liter and milliliter, kilometers and meters. So it is like that. So say a fraction and another fraction. So do not give totally the concepts which are not at all connected in the match the following, because children can just blindly match it and get those marks. Instead, you give concepts that are little bit interconnected. For example, like fractions, this side you give 2 like fractions here, unlike fractions here you give 2 unlike fractions, equivalent fractions and then unit fractions, so that the same concept is tested and there are so many fractions this side. Only the child who has understood the difference between like fractions and like fractions,
Identify.
yes, mixed fractions and unit fractions. So the child who's thorough with the concept only is able to match those fractions with the words. So please don't give totally, irrelated.
In time chapter, another question in fraction chapter, another one in measurement, another one in geometry, and one in numbers. That is totally not the correct way to create a match.
Yes, ma'am. To create the match the following. So teachers, please be careful when you are testing the concepts using match the following. And then objective type questions. Of course, we have choose the best answers. Of course, like ma'am said, no 2 answers must be the same. And please ensure one among the all the choices is the correct answer. Please don't give all 4 wrong answers. Don't repeat the same answer in 2 choices. That will also confuse the child. So while setting the choose the best answer, we should be very careful, and all the correct answers need not be arranged in the same option. Sometimes we see 5 questions, all A, all A are correct. Then when the child is ticking all A, suddenly she gets confused as to how all A's are correct. So you have to arrange the correct answers in such a way so that the options are distributed among different alphabets across the objective type questions. So these are all some of the precautions we should take when we are setting the objective type questions. And then true or false. Of course, the wordings have to be very clear when they have to answer whether the given statement is true or false. And then, of course, in maths, we have short answers, 2 marks and 3 mark questions, and then the long answers where we test for the concepts. So you can ask them or test the concepts using a variety of questions so that the students don't get bored in answering the same type of question throughout the paper. And using objective type questions, fill in the blanks, match the following questions. The children who are average and below average can use these variety of questions to score marks, because they would some children would find answering long answers always very tedious. They think it is some children don't even look at these long answers because when they have a mental block that all these questions coming in the end are going to be very, very difficult. You can see they would have written the question and just kept a dash. So we can encourage the children to answer more using all the objective type questions, match the following, fill in the blanks, giving them very, very small pictorial questions. So those questions will enhance the ability for the children to score marks in a maths exam.
Actually, the question paper should have a variety of questions. It should have a variety of questions, not simply say first Roman number 1, solve the following, some 5 questions. Roman number 2, solve the following, some 5 questions or 10 questions. Now Roman number 3, solve the following, some 5 questions or 10 questions. It is not the right way to set a question paper. It should have a variety of questions like a ma'am has listed below. You can give some questions which are represented pictorially. For that matter, geometry can be done both in the objective paper and then in the descriptive paper. Observe the following, then answer, or read the comprehension. Simple comprehension which involves numbers or any other concept that we have given. Then from that simple comprehension, say for example, it can be a simple case study question. Case study questions need not be always thought of higher classes. A simple case study question in class 3, 4, and 5. Of course, not in class 1 and 2. Even I would suggest it for 4 and 5. A simple case study. So and so went to the market. She was having this much money in the hand. She saw so many things, but the amount she was having is only this much. Will she be able to buy those things that she need to buy, or how much, or what could be the possibility of the things that she can buy with the money that she was having? All these questions can be tested. But remember, when we do a case study question, it's important that a suitable picture should also go with that, so that it looks relevant and also makes interesting for the child. At least from the picture, they will try to understand something, that this is what is the question based on. So usually case study questions come with a choose. So the simple case study is given, and from that the questions are asked. Usually those questions are always like choose the correct answer. So which enables the child to first comprehend the case study that is given, and then answer the questions from that relevant picture and from the small comprehension. It will not take more than 3-4 lines in mathematics. It is not like the paragraph questions that is being tested in the languages. Definitely it should not be more than 3 or 4 lines. That's all. So these are the variety of questions that can be tested in the question paper. And of course, teachers, I don't know how many of you follow that pattern in your schools in setting a question paper. Of course, in our schools, we follow an objective paper and a descriptive paper separately. In the objective paper, like ma'am has listed, it will contain fill in the blanks, match the correct answer, choose the correct answer, like observe the following and answer.
And
like
very short questions.
Direct pictograph, or it will all be like direct in the sense the child will be able to write the answers in that particular question paper itself. Of course, they have to put in their thinking skills, but those questions will be answered in the question paper itself. It will not carry 2-3 steps for them to answer that question. So objective paper is a paper which can be answered in the question paper itself. When we talk about descriptive paper, we talk about the 2 marks, 3 marks, and 4 mark questions. So there they need to show the steps to arrive at the answer. So their step marks are awarded. And of course, in the objective paper, if there is for class 5, we say when we talk about tally marks, or when we talk about some time chapter or measurement chapter, which involves 2 steps. Of course, in class 5, we can ask 2 steps, nothing wrong about it. But that can be for a 2 mark also. Not necessarily that each question should be of 1 mark, and the number of questions that we give should also not increase. So here in our school, we have made it in such a way that 40% of the paper will be the objective paper and 60% of the paper will be descriptive paper. When we say 40% of 80 marks, it comes to 32 marks. So 32 marks will be objective paper. So wherein the child will write the answer in the question paper itself. I'm just talking about 3, 4, and 5. I'll come to 1 and 2 little later after this. So the remaining 48 marks will be a descriptive paper where the child will be able to answer those questions in a separate sheet. In a separate sheet where they will show the working. That is very important. They cannot simply write 1-word answers there. They have to show the working. So it is advisable to give this fill-ups, match, choose, and all these questions. Observe the following and answer. A simple case study question. All these, or a pictograph or a tally mark. Interpret the tally mark and answer the questions. Observe the bar graph and answer the questions. All these can go into the objective paper. Avoid giving this match the following in the descriptive paper. We are not encouraging teachers to do that match the following in the descriptive paper, because children find it very difficult. They keep asking the question, should I copy both the sides? Should I put numbers, or should I pick and write the correct answer straight to it? All such questions arise in the examination room. To avoid all such unwanted questions, let us make it very clear that match the following, fill in the blanks, choose the correct answer, all that will be tested in the objective paper itself. Yes, teachers? And when it comes to descriptive paper also, it need not be only full of questions. find, what is this, what is this, what is this, draw, and so that's all. Mix up the questions, give a small picture of it. From that, you are asking something relevant to the picture, base the question. So it can be a mixture of questions. Simply don't ask, find the LCM of this, find the sum of this, subtract this from this, divide this from this. All direct questions, please don't put. Let it be a mixture of questions so that children also find it interesting to answer. That is very important. The interesting part only makes the child at least to give an attempt to that type of questions. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you.
We'll go to the next.
Next is the difficulty level of the question paper. So first is we decide the pattern first along with the marks weightage for each type of question. Then think about all the students in the class, their IQ level of the class and their knowledge levels. Some students will be intelligent, some will be average, and some will be below average in learning. The question paper must be doable for all. So at the beginning of the session, some teacher had pointed out this. So this is very, very important when we set the question paper. The difficulty level of the question paper must be doable for all, considering the IQ levels, the knowledge levels, and as a teacher, we know what is the level of concept that has been imparted to the students. So all this has to be considered when we are setting the question paper. This is an important factor to be considered when we are setting the question paper. Otherwise, as they will all be in tears telling the maths paper was very difficult, the parents would get back to us telling how we could ask such a difficult paper, and to avoid all those uncomfortable situations facing the parents, facing the children, they would lose their motivation. So the difficulty level of the question paper must be very, very balanced. It must not be very low, then it would be just like a cakewalk and children will not be serious because they know that the question paper is going to be very, very easy, nor this extreme, nor that extreme. It must be a very well balanced question paper. Ma'am, Charu ma'am, you like to add something?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's what already we have discussed.
Yes, ma'am.
Lengthy paper. It should
Yes,
have
ma'am.
mixture of questions. Variety should be there in the questions. Avoid giving lengthy papers because that also makes children stressed out because they will not be able to complete the paper if it is a lengthy paper. It should
Yes,
shoot
ma'am.
to the categories of all levels of children. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So next is syllabus coverage. So the complete syllabus should be covered in the question paper. So normally we would give 6 chapters, 7 chapters as the portion or as the guideline to be followed for preparing for the exam. Please make sure the complete syllabus is included in the blueprint and all the questions from those chapters are taken and placed in the question paper. Because why do we need why can't the question paper be set in only say 2 topics or 3 topics? That is because each child has an expertise in a particular chapter. Some child may be very good in division, some child is very good in geometry, some child can pictorially understand, visualize things and can understand measurement better. So that is why we say all the chapters must be given equal importance and the questions represented in the question paper must cover the complete syllabus, and questions from all these chapters must be there so that each child can score marks doing problems in her chapter of expertise. And questions should never be out of syllabus. This is also one more important point. We think this chapter was there, we give some questions, we give questions from chapters we have not taken or including concepts we have not taught in the class. Then again after correction, they will all come to us and say this was not taught in the class. So we want marks for that particular question and we will be in a very uncomfortable situation. So syllabus coverage must be uniform in the question paper.
And one
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to add on this. Many a times as adults, we don't realize that for that particular age, they may not be able to answer that question. We always, as adults, we think in our point of view when we set a question paper, oh, this is a very simple question. Why can't they answer? Yes, but for the child of a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, we have to think in that point of view. And as teachers know, by years of experience, what we think is, okay, setting a question paper is just easy. So I have done it for so many years. Why is it that we are asked to attend such sessions, and ma'am is also giving such tips to set a question paper? As teachers, I know that all of you would have done a wonderful job, but many a times our adult point of view comes into force when we set a question paper. For us, this plus this minus this will look very easy. But for the child's point of view, it may be a little difficult. So, and it may not be in that particular portion also. That also we have to keep it in mind. Oh, already I have taught 4-digit numbers. Why can't I give 5-digit numbers? Yes, that is also a question. So what happens is, when we are restricting that particular class to only 4-digit numbers, your question should also be constrained to 4-digit numbers. It should not go beyond 5-digit numbers. Say for multiplication of three-digit number by a 1-digit number, or for example, 2-digit by 2-digit, or if you test addition or subtraction, usually in addition, it should not cross 4-digit numbers. Then if it is crossing a 4-digit number, and if it is becoming a 5-digit number, say for example 8,729 plus some 3,200, it will definitely be a 5-digit number which is in 11,000s. So the child will be having a doubt whether my answer is right or wrong. Now, ma'am has taught me only 4-digit numbers. Why am I getting an answer with 5 digits? Is my answer right or not? What
Usually happens in when we set word problems, ma'am, because we lose when we give so many apples, so many mangoes, so many other fruits are to be added, we lose track that it is crossing the 4-digit limit.
So teachers, please, that is why we say, you please work out the answers before after framing the question paper. You please write out the answers. You try to look at the steps that involve, like how a child will do the answer. So all that steps. So step mark is very important. Suppose if there are 6 steps to arrive at this particular answer, and if the teacher has awarded only 2 marks, then the distribution of marks becomes very difficult. So please keep that in mind, and never allot quarter marks for any step. We don't encourage teachers to give quarter mark. We have done away with all those quarter. Maximum is only half a mark. So the steps that involve and the marks that you have allotted should also tally. That is very, very important. So don't deviate. Suppose if it is a 2-mark question, but there are 3 fill-ups, then just teachers suggest how would you allot marks. And what happens finally, once it is done in the question paper, we are forced to say that, okay, this blank is difficult, so we'll keep that blank as 1 mark and the remaining 2 blanks as half of mark. So we are forced to come into that decision just because we have given it as a 2-mark question. So avoid all such simple errors in the question paper. As teachers, that's what I always used to say. We overlook at all these mistakes. The question is right, of course, no doubt about it. The question is perfectly right. But is it tallying with the marks that we have allotted? No. So that also should be taken care of by us as experienced teachers. Only then we all will become seasoned teachers.
Yes, ma'am.
And ma'am has referred to the selection of questions. Decide the number of questions. I think I have already told you about that. Please decide how many questions are you going to give. It should not exceed the number by more than 5 or less than 5. That should definitely not happen. And select from revision or preliminary test textbooks, reference books. So you would have done a lot of revision in the class. And of course, you would have conducted small tests in the class or unit tests in the class. And you have gone through so many reference books, textbooks, everything. So select questions which are very nice and which are very interesting for the child to read and answer. That is very important. Don't select vague questions. And some questions which are especially in word problems, I would like to mention. They would have not come across such situation at all. Suppose if I'm living in Tamil Nadu and if the question is going to be based on some Northeast, say Assam, it so happened there, it is what was like this. Suppose it is a case study question. Definitely, I may not be able to visualize because I have never come across such situation. So don't select questions in such a way that they will not be able to visualize at all or which is unknown to them totally. So let the questions be in a way it is known to them at least to some extent, which they have experienced in their day-to-day life situations, or they have come across such news in their day-to-day life situations. So teachers, please be very sure. And questions should not be repeated from the previous year exams. This many a times what we do, we pick up some previous year's question paper, we just change the numbers and we set up question paper. Finished, our job is finished. So it is so easy for us. And the same type of questions we would have also discussed it in the classroom also. So those who are very good in mathematics and those who are high achievers in the class, just like that, they'll finish the paper. So
because parents have a tendency to collect the previous year's exams from other students and train the students. So their parents always could say that this question in the question paper, just last year question paper or a copy on the exam. So these are the comments which the parents would be discussing among themselves when they see our question paper. So we must be very careful as to not just like Charu ma'am said, just change the numbers and give the questions from the previous year exams.
And already ma'am has told about this. The entire syllabus or the portions that has been prescribed for that particular term exam or that particular unit test exam or that particular periodic test should be covered in a proper way. So the weightage given for each subtopic or topic should be taken into consideration. Please see to that it is not deviated. And suppose if it is not done, if it is not given to you, the first step is of the teacher is to make a allotment of the topics with its weightage. So for if I say Phillips, how many marks I'm going to give from the measurement topic, how many marks I'm going to give from the time chapter, how many marks I'm going to give from the 4 operations chapter, or how many marks I'm going to give it from profit and loss. So all that has to be decided. Or if you take a particular topic, if it is for 20 marks, 1 mark how many I'm going to ask, 2 mark how many I'm going to ask, 4 mark how many I'm going to ask, 3 mark how many I'm going to ask. So that particular blueprint has to be prepared, or that particular allotment has to be prepared by the teacher before starting any question paper for that matter. Only then you will not miss out on any topics that is being included for the exam. And too much of weightage should not be given for one particular topic and letting loose another topic. That should not happen. Yes, ma'am. We'll go to the next slide.
So the most important thing which the children face on the exam day, the time taken to solve the paper. So always, like we referred earlier, all of you agreed on this design of the question paper. Design the question paper from the student point of view. How much time the student will take to think and answer this question. Writing skills and the speed of students, of course, this is very, very important after we are facing students after this corona pandemic. They are all at home. They have completely forgotten their writing skills. The speed of solving the problems, even the speed of recollecting the tables has come drastically down. So what we would test the level of a question paper we would give in a normal scenario would be different. Now it has to be definitely be scaled down, because the writing skill and the speed of the students after all these online sessions have definitely come down. So we need to consider that as well. and intelligence and recollecting ability to solve the question. So each question can have different difficulty levels. So we should also allot the time accordingly. You cannot give all the questions that are very, very difficult and needs more time to think and solve the question. Even in long answers, 1 or 2 questions can be hot, but other 2 can be direct questions which are lengthy but direct, so that the child will not take more time to recollect and apply the concept. And you should give for a 2-hour paper, you need not set questions so that the child takes the entire 2 hours for solving the paper. The paper must be that a normal child can complete the paper some 10 or 15 minutes before, so that the child can have some time to even recheck the answer paper. That is the more important, so that she can check the paper, have the confidence that she has done all the questions, check whether she has written the questions correctly. And more important thing is, when she gives the answer paper, she has the mental satisfaction that she has attempted the exam to her best of her ability. So we know sometimes we find till the last minute the child has completed the question paper, but she leaves with so much of dissatisfaction because there was no time to check the paper. They're always anxious as to, if I would have checked, I would have corrected some mistakes. Now I'm not sure whether I had written everything correctly. So always keep the paper such that, and limit the paper such that they always have some 10 minutes to do all the final checking, and whether they have completed. They all feel satisfied when they presented it properly. So we always find students drawing lines and little bit of neat presentation at the end. After completing all the questions, they do all that. So we also give time for the students to do all this. So time taken to solve the paper is a very important factor while setting the question paper. Yes, Chairwoman.
Yes, ma'am. We'll go to the next.
Next one, essential characters of a good question. So each question when we take now, it must be relevant to the concept that we are going to test. It must be very clear without vagueness. The question must be very apt and clear, concise, purposeful. It must connect to the concept, and it must always simulate thinking. Like, for example, for the match the following question, it must be done only after some real thinking and not just blindly. So every question must have all these following characteristics. So next we would see, I just loaded some examples of a few vague questions. See, there are as man said, and there are 49 dogs signed up to compete in the dog show. There are 36 more small dogs than large dogs signed up to compete. How many small dogs are signed up to compete? So in this question, that there is no clear demarcation as to how large means it's a large dog, or how small means it is a small dog. So children, when they read this question itself, they get confused. The confusion comes where they think, how large must a large dog be? How small will the small dog be? You see, here in the concept itself, there is a small confusion, and they don't approach this question with so much confidence. Instead, we can give them things that are clearly demarcated. Like, there are 49 animals signed up to compete in a show. There are 36 say dogs, and there are 49 more cats. So these clearly demarcated things will help the child to understand the question better. So don't give questions where the clarity is not read much by the child. So next question, if you see, this is to calculate the perimeter of the shapes. So teachers, do you think we can calculate the perimeter of the first shape with the given details?
If yes, why? How? And if no, why?
Yes, can any one of you answer, girls? Answer, teachers? Is the perimeter, can we able to find the perimeter of the first shape? Is it
Yes,
possible?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is
I-
possible.
Screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, how many of you say yes?
You can see the screen.
Ma'am, I think
It is possible, ma'am.
Yes, it is possible. But when a child sees this diagram, what would she think? What would he or she think?
All the parameters is not given, so how can I
Yes.
solve?
How can I solve? Very good, Divya
yes.
ma'am. So she would think
The length is
because
given, but the breadth is not given. And the small portion, what is the length of that? It is not given.
it is not given. Though as adults, we think, yes, this could be done. You remove it and it is only a rectangle of 12 and 10. The child would always keep thinking about that question because two more measurements are not given. I'm not able to deduce it from the question. So definitely she will leave it putting a question mark. Even the next question, of course, the next question is more complex, even more complex than the first one, because this 2 centimeter, the child is not sure whether it is the vertical line that is 2 centimeter or the horizontal, the vertical line or the horizontal line, which the figure shows as 2 centimeter. Of course, as adults, we know we have to take it as the vertical line because then we can do the problem. So all these ambiguities must not be presented in the question paper. So these are some of the few examples as to the questions we should avoid. So let us set clear question papers. Now coming to the blueprint of the question paper. So what is the meaning of a blueprint? Of course, this comes from architecture, which means always before building a house or any building, they have something called a blueprint, which is they call as the detailed plan of action. They go brick by brick, we all know, using the blueprint. So that is why we also have a blueprint, which means we go brick by brick using the blueprint. So it is the matrix or chart reporting the number and type of questions represented across the topics in each content area, consistent with the learning objectives and relative weight and test given to each topic. So having decided on the number of topics based on the learning objectives, now we decide what are the number of marks that are to be asked in each topic, and through those questions we link assessment to learning objectives. For example, if we have taught them to draw a circle, then that objective has to be tested, indicates the marks carried by each question, helps in distribution of appropriate weightage and questions across the topics. So the blueprint is a essential one before we start setting the question paper. And I have added a blueprint of class 5 from our school. So you all can just have a view. Yes, Charu ma'am, can you just quickly go through this class 5 blueprint of our school, ma'am, for periodic test 1?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm just looking at it. So this is just for term 1. We have taken term 1. In term 1, it is a periodic test 1. Of course, in the term 1 we have periodic test 1. Then we have term 1. Then periodic test 2. Then periodic test 3.
Yes, we have then now periodic test 2, periodic test 3, and we have yearly examination. So, so this is, so if you see the last box, this will be the blueprint given to us for setting the question paper. Charu ma'am, maybe you can explain the blueprint which I have shown at the bottom for yearly examination.
Yes, ma'am. So early exam consists of the topics that has been covered in the term 1, so that the child is able to recollect those topics also. They are not losing touch on those topics. Earlier, it used to be the full entire book in our days, and even after that, it was followed for some years that the entire book will be covered for the yearly examination. Now that insists that it is very difficult for a child to go through the entire reader, we are making changes from 30% of term 1. So when you look at the term 1 portions, 30% of term 1 portions are taken as early examination portion. So 30% of term 1 comes to 24 marks. So there we have also some topics in term 1, which is not only addition, subtraction, factors and multiples. We select the topics that is very important for the child to know, and it is important for the child to acquire knowledge in that particular topic so that she can cope up in the next class, that is in the next higher class. So that is why the topics are picked up in such a way. Other topics also in one, but these topics are picked up such that it is relevant for them to know about these topics when they move to the next class. And remaining 70% is from the topics that are covered in the, that is from periodic 2, periodic test 3, and term 2. After periodic test 3 we cover some portions, a little bit of portions, all that is covered here as 70%. So this 70% comes to 56 marks. 56 plus 24 becomes 80 marks. And when we are look at this 70%, we have so many topics in that: fractions, decimals, angles, time, measurement, handling data, and area. So for each topic weightage. So when you look at that, fractions topic was already done in term 2, was already done, sorry, periodic test 2, it was already done in periodic test 3. So now again we are testing fractions. So we are not going to go for very high marks. So because in periodic test 2, that was the time that they learned fractions, it was given as 23 marks. Later again that concept was tested in periodic test 3. So the weightage was only 8 marks. So now again we are sticking on to that same 8 marks. Same way when it is decimals, it was the topic for periodic test 2. Only that time they learned about decimals. So that concept was tested in a broader sense. It was for 23 marks. And when it is again tested in periodic test 3, it became 8 marks. And then again here we are sticking on to the same 8 marks. Of course, angles, it was in periodic test 3, which was tested for 10 marks. Now we are reducing it to that. So the new topics, apart from what they have learned in periodic test 2 and periodic test 3, is area. Area is given more weightage. And of course, measurement topic, which is an important topic, which was tested only in periodic test 3, had a maximum weightage of 10 marks. So all these weightages, if you look at it, it's based on the previous tests and the previous portions, we decide these marks. Of course, these are all subjective. Every year we can make a slight change, either 1 or 2 marks up or 1 or 2 marks down. That is not a problem. But we stick on to that. And when you look at this periodic test 2 also, 30% of term 1 marks and remaining 70%. Same way when you look at periodic test 3, 10% of PT1, 20% of PT2, we split 30% as 10% and 20%, plus 20, and the remaining 70% as usual. So teachers, this blueprint actually gives a broader idea how to set a question paper. So this chapter means I should set it for 15 marks. This chapter means I should set it for 12 marks. Clear-cut idea is already given to me. When you look at the periodic test 2, it's just 5 chapters. I have to complete it for 80 marks. So I have to take this multiples chapter. So I'll put the broader outline, like 1 mark how many I'm going to test it in fact, 2 mark how many, and 3 mark how many, and 4 mark how many. Same way for operations, same way fraction, same way decimal, same way handling data. So this, if I put it and if I tally it, totally find the 1 mark, or totally find the 2 mark, totally find the 3 mark, and totally find the 4 mark, it should add up to 80. So this, I think all as teachers already we have been doing, and I think all of you will be able to do that in a better way after this session. Yes, ma'am.
So these are the blueprints we get after discussing the course of study from the agreed upon by all the teachers, and we definitely stick to this. And by giving us this blueprint, we also know which chapters have more weightage, so that we could also train the students in a better way all those topics. Next is of course grading. When it comes to grading the internal assessments, the students must be able to demonstrate the application of student skills and knowledge and pursue their interests. Yeah, the very important aspect of internal assessment is it reduces the burden and tension related to the final examination, because that carries 20 marks, and on the examination day definitely they need not have to answer for those extra 20 marks, isn't it? So definitely it reduces the burden on the final examination. It also acts as a link which provides data related to the student's performance. So how she is in class, how regular is she in class, and during internal assessment itself, we will know whether a child is, how a child is kind of get an idea how the child will perform in her last exam, because this is a reflection of how she is going to do. So definitely if a child has done or in all the classes well, we know that child is going to perform very well in the final exam. If a child is very weak in all her internal assessments, we know broadly how her performance in the final examination is. So we can help the child better. So principle of internal assessment, it must be continuous process. So sometimes we don't keep any class test. The students are very lethargic, and just for taking the internal marks, before the school closes for the exam, we give 2 internal tests. That is of no use, because no feedback will be useful for the child that time. So it's a continuous process and does not replace exam. Of course, exams, final assessment are very important. It is suitable as an evaluation technique and tool. It has fixed portion of marks. Of course, we have to allot a certain portion for all these. It gives feedback to teachers so that they can improve their teaching. This we have seen. And advantages of internal assessment, of course, reduces the weightage of external assessment. Student engage themselves in study throughout the year. So when you tell them every Friday, I'll give a small test that is used for internal exam, of course, they study the week's portion and come, or you can have a test every Monday so that they use the weekend for brushing the concept taught throughout the week. Student, of course, they will be more attentive in the class. Disadvantage of internal assessment is, of course, if the teacher is biased and they are using it for their own benefit. We tend to judge children sometimes when the children back answer us, or if the child is not good in regularity basis or discipline wise, or sometimes we find even if some parent has rubbed us in a very wrong way, we take it very personally, and some teachers use internal assessment to tweak the marks of the child. All these are very unprofessional approaches to being a teacher. So all these can be used as a disadvantage to the child, which is should be avoided at all costs. So unfairness, and also favoring a student. So when we tend to like a student for any reason it may be, we always tend to up the internal mark a bit. It should also be avoided, and biasness should be completely avoided at all costs. So these are the broad factors which we must take into mind when we are grading children using internal assessment. Those who are regular and punctual and interested in the class must definitely given motivation through internal assessment. Yes, we have come to the end of the session, teachers.